For nearly 2 years, the narrative has been consistent. Western sanctions? Failed. Russia's economy? Resilient. The Kremlin even boasts of GDP growth. But behind the manipulated statistics, behind the endless propaganda loops, lies a devastating truth that Moscow is frantically trying to conceal. Russia's economic growth is a toxic illusion, fueled by one thing, and one thing only: war spending. It's an economic system built on a foundation of melting permafrost and aging, brittle pipes. And it's about to hit a breaking point. This winter is not just a season of snow and freezing temperatures. It is the ultimate stress test. It is the moment when the immense, unsustainable cost of military action collides with the catastrophic failure of neglected, sanction-starved domestic infrastructure. The West thought it could defeat Russia with sanctions on oil revenue. But the true weapon? The coming cold. Welcome to the hidden cost of Putin's war. This is how the Russian economy is cracking, and why winter is about to deliver the final, freezing blow. When Moscow announces a rosy GDP growth number, say 0.6% or whatever figure they choose to publish, the world is meant to believe the economy is adapting. But ask yourself, where is that money going? The answer is staggering. Look at the numbers for the 2026 budget. Russia is earmarking approximately 16.84 trillion rubles for its military and security sectors. Let me repeat that: 16.84 trillion rubles. That accounts for a colossal 38% of the entire state expenditure. This is the largest military budget since the collapse of the Soviet Union. This is not economic health. This is an economy on life support, with the funding for drip running straight from the treasury to the military-industrial complex. The growth we are seeing is non-productive. It's not new factories making consumer goods. It's shell casings, tanks, and missiles. It's a boom in military wages and subsidized loans to defense contractors. This kind of expenditure does not create lasting wealth. It simply cannibalizes the future for immediate combat needs. To fund this war machine, the government is cutting deep into the heart of civilian life. Social projects, including vital healthcare modernization and emergency medical services, are seeing their budgets slashed. The war doesn't just cost lives on the front line. It costs the quality of life for every single Russian citizen. And the debt is mounting. While officials are quick to dismiss concerns of a sovereign default, the government is frantically searching for new revenue streams. The result? A direct hit on the populace. We're seeing a proposed hike in the national VAT, the value-added tax, from 20% to 22%, and the introduction of a new technology fee on electronic devices. Russia is quite literally taxing its way to military solvency, shifting the crippling financial burden of the war directly onto the shoulders of its people, who are simultaneously watching their public services decay. This is the definition of an overheating, unsustainable, and toxic economy. It's an economic time bomb ticking down, and its fuse is getting shorter. The Kremlin's war chest relies on one central artery: oil and gas revenue. This is the lifeblood of the Russian state. But that artery is now under a multi-front assault, and the revenue line is hemorrhaging. For 2026, Moscow itself projects a dramatic decrease in energy sector income, a decline of approximately 20%. This isn't Western propaganda. This is the Kremlin's own admission of dwindling returns. Why the decline? Because the West is getting smarter, and the sanctions are finally achieving long-term damage in the two sectors Moscow can least afford to lose: crude oil and liquid natural gas. Take crude oil. The latest sanctions from the US, UK, and EU are no longer just aimed at transactions. They are aimed at the heart of Russian oil production, targeting giants like Rosneft and Lukoil. The goal is not just to make the oil expensive, but to make it untouchable for traditional, reliable buyers. Experts suggest this targeted action, if properly enforced, could take 2 to 3 million barrels of Russian oil off the global market. That's a massive volume, and rerouting it is becoming harder every day. While the so-called shadow fleet, those aging, uninsured tankers operating in the maritime gray zone, is vast, it cannot replace the efficiency and scale of legitimate global shipping for long. The discount Russia is forced to offer to these gray market buyers eats further into their already shrinking profits. But the real, slow-motion catastrophe is in the future of Russian gas, liquefied natural gas, or LNG. LNG was supposed to be Russia's great pivot, a way to bypass fixed pipelines and sell gas globally via specialized ships. It was meant to be the answer to Europe turning off the pipeline taps. But here, the sanctions are devastatingly effective because LNG is a high-tech industry. You need Western expertise for the massive liquefaction facilities, for the high-pressure compressors, and critically, for the specialized gas carriers. These are not your average ships. They are complex floating refrigerators. Due to the technological embargo, Russia is failing to complete its flagship LNG projects. The launch of the massive Baltic LNG facility, it's been postponed from 2023, now possibly to 2026, and even that is an optimistic scenario. Their ability to transport the gas they can produce is severely limited because Western shipyards and component providers have walked away. The specialized LNG transport fleet is small and cannot be easily expanded in the shadow market the way oil tankers can. The net effect is a vicious cycle. Declining revenue leads to budgetary strain, which forces taxation on the citizens, which in turn reduces the funds available for the very infrastructure maintenance needed to survive the crushing season ahead. This brings us to the central, immediate threat: winter. The war is now coming home to Russia in the most devastating way possible, through a failure to keep its own people warm. Russia is a nation defined by its cold. Temperatures across huge swathes of the country routinely drop to -20, -30, even -40 degrees Celsius. In these conditions, heat and reliable power are not a luxury. They are a matter of survival. The vast network of civilian utilities, the district heating systems, the pipelines carrying hot water and steam to apartment blocks, the aging power plants. These systems date back to the Soviet era. They were never designed to be efficient, and now they are falling apart. For decades, these systems were maintained using a combination of domestic and, crucially, Western-made, high-precision components, specialized valves, sophisticated control systems, and monitoring technology. The comprehensive sanctions regime has cut off the supply of these spare parts. The result is a ticking civilian time bomb. Small maintenance issues, a worn pump, a leaky valve, a cracked section of pipe, cannot be fixed properly or sometimes at all. When the first deep freeze hits, these points of failure multiply. A single failure in a major district heating pipeline can leave tens of thousands of residents in an apartment block with no heat, no water, and lethal cold inside the walls. This is not a hypothetical risk. We have already seen the precursors. Throughout last winter, Russia saw a surge in emergency outages and utility failures across regions, from the Far East to the suburbs of Moscow. This is the systemic decay accelerating. But the physical infrastructure isn't the only pressure point. Moscow is now facing a homegrown fuel crisis exacerbated by Ukrainian military action. While Russia is busy pounding Ukraine's energy grid, Kyiv is delivering a crippling counterblow to Russian oil refining capacity. Targeted Ukrainian drone strikes have hit key oil refineries deep inside Russian territory, including facilities in Ryazan and Volgograd. At the peak of these attacks, the combined strikes were reported to have temporarily reduced Russian oil refining by almost a fifth. The impact was immediate and localized. We saw fuel shortages, rising prices, rationing, and long queues for gasoline and diesel in the Volga region and in southern and central Russia. This is not just an inconvenience for motorists. Diesel is the lifeblood of winter logistics. It powers the generators, the snowplows, the military trucks moving equipment, and the trains carrying essential supplies across the vast, frozen landscape. A breakdown in fuel supply is a direct threat to domestic stability and military resupply efforts. Furthermore, the very ground Russia is built on is failing. Sanctions are even inhibiting Russia's ability to counter the effects of climate change. The lack of Western technology is actively hampering permafrost monitoring and stabilization efforts in the Arctic. When the permafrost melts, it destabilizes everything built on it: pipelines, railway lines, and critical infrastructure that transport workers and resources across Siberia. This environmental factor acts as a relentless, non-military source of strain on the entire logistical backbone. Putin has successfully shielded the military from budgetary cuts, but he cannot shield the civilian heating system from a lack of spare parts, an absence of skilled labor due to mobilization, and the relentless, crushing physics of a Russian winter. The military budget may be limitless, but the structural integrity of the state's domestic infrastructure is finite. When the temperature drops to a critical level, the crack in the foundation, the neglect of the civilian economy, will widen into a catastrophic fissure. The Kremlin's strategy has been simple: outlast the West. They've managed to create an internal war economy that, on paper, looks like resilience. But what we are witnessing is the maximum saturation point of that war economy. They have hit their ceiling for military spending. They are scraping the barrel for revenue, resorting to domestic tax hikes. And critically, they have ignored the one enemy that cannot be defeated by tanks or rubles: thermodynamics. This winter, the West needs to watch the gauges on the domestic infrastructure, not just the oil price cap. The true breaking point for Russia's economy won't be a dramatic drop in the ruble, but a quiet, sustained failure of the district heating system in a major city. A few broken pipes in a Siberian town may not make international headlines, but compounded across 1,000 regions, it creates a crisis of faith and stability that even the best propaganda machine cannot plaster over. The cold is a political weapon, and this year, it has turned on its creator. Russia's economy is not just adapting, it is distorting, draining, and decaying from the inside out. And when the ice finally freezes deep enough, it will crack. The implications of this domestic crisis stretch far beyond Russia's borders. What happens when a global energy power struggles to keep its own cities lit? What is the global ripple effect of a 20% drop in their energy revenue? That's what we analyze next. If you want to understand the real data behind the geopolitical maneuvering, if you want the unvarnished truth about the systems that shape our world, then you need to subscribe right now. Hit that notification bell so you don't miss our deep dive into the global energy market fallout from this Russian domestic collapse. And tell us in the comments below, do you think Putin can keep his population warm enough to sustain this war? Let us know your thoughts. Thank you for watching. We'll see you in the next analysis.